Hola a todos, hoy vamos a ver la diferencia entre cualquier y cualquiera. So today we are going to look at the difference between cualquier and cualquiera. Now, both of these words can be translated as any in English, and any would be an indefinite adjective. So anytime you want to reference a noun without being specific, we can use any, right? Now, there are two contexts or themes that we are going to use to analyze the differences between these two words. The first theme is going to be their function as adjectives. Okay, so both of these words can function as adjectives, right? But of course, the difference will lie in position. When they function as adjectives, they will occur in different places. Cualquier appears before the noun, while cualquiera appears after the noun, right? So this is the first difference. We're looking at them as adjectives, and the first difference that we can observe is that cualquier precedes the noun, whereas cualquiera follows the noun, right? So let's look at some examples. ¿Qué película vas a mirar? Which film are you going to watch? So if we pose that question to someone, that means that there is a list from which the person must select, right? Select a movie, okay? So when they say, so if the person says that he or she will, let's say he, let's say it's a male. So if that person says, if he says that he will watch any film or he's going to watch any film, he's not being specific. So if there's a list of 5 films and he says that he's going to watch any film, then that means that the film that he selects will not matter. Because at the end of the day, he said any. And any is an indefinite adjective. So he's not referring to a specific film. As I have here, voy a mirar cualquier película. I am going to watch any film. So if there are 5 films, right, on the list, and he says, voy a mirar cualquier película. I'm going to watch any film. We don't know which one he's going to watch. And neither do we know how he is going to select the film that he will watch, right? So this is how any works, right? But let's focus on the positioning. Cualquier always goes before the noun. And please note that it does not matter whether the noun is masculine or feminine. As you see, película would be a feminine noun, and we use cualquier before it. Cualquier will always precede the noun. The gender does not matter, okay? And another thing to note is that it always has to be singular. But we're going to return to that a little later in the lesson. So, voy a mirar cualquier película. I am going to watch any film. Which one? Cualquier película. Right? So let's go this side. Cualquier hombre puede tener éxito. Any man can be successful. So hombre would be masculine, and as you see, cualquier precedes that. So once again, I use this example to show you that the gender does not matter, right? Cualquier will always precede the noun. It does not matter whether the noun is masculine or feminine, okay? So any man can be successful. Who can be successful? Cualquier hombre, right? Muy bien. Now, when it comes to cualquiera, this is where we have a difference in meaning. So, you know for sure that there's a difference in placement, but there's also a slight difference in meaning when we use cualquiera, even though it translates as any two, right? Voy a mirar una película cualquiera. I am going to watch any film. So you see, this is the same translation. These two sentences have the same translation, but there's a slight difference in meaning. But before we get to the meaning, let's look at the position. So as I said earlier, cualquiera will always follow the noun, right? So una película cualquiera, and please do not assume that cualquiera is the feminine counterpart or the feminine equivalent of cualquier. No. So with cualquier, just like how we said cualquier will appear before a noun regardless of the gender, that is the same thing that applies to cualquiera, right? Cualquiera will appear after the noun, and it does not matter whether that noun is masculine or feminine. Does not matter. It doesn't matter, right? So una película cualquiera. So anytime we use cualquiera, it must follow the noun, okay? And we're going to get back to that meaning difference shortly. Un hombre cualquiera puede tener éxito. Any man can be successful. As you see, I also utilized the same sentence just to illustrate the fact that both sentences have the same translation, but there's a slight difference in meaning, okay? So what is this difference when it comes to meaning? Well, when we use cualquiera as an adjective, right, it has a negative connotation. Even though it has the same translation as cualquier, it has a negative translation, a negative connotation, I mean, right? So, voy a mirar una película cualquiera. In this context, cualquiera would almost translate as any old, insignificant, right? So you may ask, well, does that mean that cualquier has the same negative connotation? Not exactly, but for sure, if you use cualquiera, I think you're going to understand why when we get to the next part, when we get to the second function of cualquiera, then you'll probably understand why it has a negative connotation, right? Yes, cualquiera translates as any as well, but it doesn't have that same, it doesn't have the same, it doesn't carry that same negativity, for lack of a better term. It really doesn't, right? So when it comes to placement, cualquier goes before the noun. It does not matter whether the noun is masculine or feminine. Cualquiera follows the noun, and it does not matter whether that noun is masculine or feminine, right? And cualquiera is not the feminine equivalent of cualquier, okay? Now, let's look at the second usage. And I think the second usage of cualquiera is going to explain the negative connotation, okay? So apart from being an adjective, cualquiera can also function as a pronoun, and in this context, it will function as an indefinite pronoun, right? Because it can refer to someone or something, but of course, we are not being specific. So in this context, it will be translated as anyone or anyone. So anyone as one word would refer to persons, and anyone would refer to, as two words would refer to objects, right? Cualquiera puede tener éxito. Anyone can be successful, right? So cualquiera replaces a noun. So when I say un hombre, or when I say cualquier hombre, any man, cualquiera. Because remember, pronouns replace nouns, right? So, un hombre cualquiera or cualquier hombre, both of them can be replaced by cualquiera. Anyone can be successful, right? Voy a mirar cualquiera. I am going to watch anyone. So we're talking about the film. Una película cualquiera or cualquier película. Both of them can be replaced by cualquiera. And in that context, we're talking about an object or a thing. So, well, we're not talking about object, a thing rather. I am going to watch anyone, right? Once we have two words, we're talking about a thing. So, voy a mirar cualquiera. And a third example, me gustaría ganar cualquiera de estos premios. I would like to win any one of these awards. Right? So in this context, cualquiera is functioning as an indefinite pronoun where we are making reference to someone or something without being specific. Okay? We use cualquiera. And of course, cualquiera would replace the noun. So the noun has to be known, right? So once the noun is known, we can replace it with cualquiera. And if it's a person, it would translate as anyone. And if it's an object or a thing, it would translate as anyone. But this time, anyone would be two words, right? Now, I said earlier that you would understand the negative connotation when I reviewed the second usage, but I have to correct myself. The usage that I'm about to tell you, that is what I was referring to, not their function as a pronoun. So, cualquiera cannot actually function as a noun, and it would translate as nobody. So if we want to say that someone is irrelevant, someone is insignificant, we can call them un cualquiera, right? Un cualquiera. Or if you're talking about a man, un cualquiera. If we're talking about a woman, una cualquiera. For example, Susana es una cualquiera. You're saying Susana is a nobody, right? It's an insult. So please don't call anyone un cualquiera or una cualquiera. Please don't do that. Because we're saying that that individual has very little relevance or that individual is not important, right? So you see, in that context, is an insult. And it reminds us of this usage, right? Even though it would translate as any, because it's used after the noun, not because it's used after the noun, but this word, cualquiera, it has that negative connotation, right? Even though, like I said, it has the same translation as cualquier. That's right. So let's recap. Both of these words can function as adjectives, and in that context, they will be translated as any. Cualquier precedes the noun, cualquiera follows the noun. And it does not matter whether the noun is singular or masculine in both situations, right? Secondly, cualquiera can function as an indefinite pronoun. In that pardon. In that context, it will replace a noun which is already known, and it can refer to a person or a thing, right? Cualquiera can also be used as an insult, right? If you're talking about a male, we say un cualquiera. If you're talking about a woman, we say una cualquiera. And that means that that person is irrelevant, basically. And one more thing before we close off. There are plural forms of these words, but they're not very common. Okay? In the case of cualquier, we have cualesquier. And in the case of cualquiera, we have cualesquiera. Okay? These are not really used, so you don't really have to worry your head about them, right? The singular form would suffice, because when you translate it in English, it would already, the plural meaning would already be embedded within the singular form. So there's no need for you to use cualesquiera or cualesquiera. Right, no hace falta, okay? So I just wanted to let you know. So you just need to concentrate on these two, all right? Eso es todo por hoy. Espero que les haya gustado el video y que entiendan este concepto. Muchas gracias por ver como siempre y nos vemos.